So let's just talk about breaking into the high-end market. I mean, I just know from my perspective, you've always been the guy that, like, you know, you do the estate properties. I mean, it's funny, I think you and I even talked the other day, and it was interesting that your average sales price was actually lower than just from my own personal perception was, just because I'm probably just more, almost like, I think, the general public. I mean, I would think that David Troy only sells houses that are like 2.5, 3 million plus. But I know your average sales price is actually more like 1.5 million or so, did you tell me?
Yeah.
So, but talk about, you know, getting into that like elite, you know, estate, you know, properties that you have sold in the past, and how do you do that? You know, and kind of what would be your advice if somebody really wanted to try and tap into that super high-end market?
You know, it's just a market segment for me. I would tell you it's probably my least important one. It's almost like cherry on top. If it works out and you get a good listing, there's a lot of costs associated with keeping those listings and trying to get those listings. Those clientele are also, you know, they have very large egos, so you have to sort of deal with some things that are a little different than farther down the food chain, if you will. But I mean, I wouldn't say I necessarily worked on a specific strategy that paid off. I think it's just that they have been part of my farm right from the get-go, and having grown up in the area. And then, you know, I was with Joe Buchanan as a partner for 7 years, so, you know, she already was an established agent. She already had sold a few of the, you know, premier properties in Altos Hills, so we together just sort of took off. I mean, she was doing, you know, 20, 22 deals a year, and we partnered. It was just the perfect fit, the perfect time, because, you know, she was in her late 60s, I was in my 30s, and, you know, male, female, it was, you know, I think it was one of the strongest partnerships that, you know, that has happened around here.
Yeah, I agree.
We were doing, you know, close to 50 plus deals every single year for 7 years in a row.
And doing it in the high-end markets.
Yeah, I mean, really doing all the market throughout that area.
Right.
So when she and I split up, it was, you know, I mean, luckily all those years, it helped to continue with my own you know, work in that marketplace. But I'm not, you know, today I'm not going after it aggressively. I mean, in our market, Gary Campy has by far the most market share in the high end, and I've thought about ways to try to get more of it, but it's, you know, it's just so much more fun to get a listing, prepare it nicely, get multiple offers, and move on. I mean,
right, and then use the high-end ones you could sit on for a year.
Yeah.
Or more, you know.
And those phone calls get, you know, we all have those phone calls. We have to call them every week, and you're like, God, what the hell am I going to tell them this week? You know, it's you know, in the high end, it's brutal because remember, on the lower end, at least you had some showing, hopefully at least one or two. But the high end, you had like nothing. You know,
right.
So,
I mean, because it's so few bucks. The pool's so small.
So small. But when it happens, you know, I mean, part of, you know, again, that's why I'm in awe of the people that do lots of transactions. I mean, you know, I do a fair amount of transactions, but it's not extraordinary. I mean, that's why I'm still in awe of other people that do, you know, 50, 60, 70 plus.
Right.
Because, you know, the reality is, it doesn't matter if it's a $500,000 townhome or a $1.5 million house, it's still all the same thing. I mean, I feel like I've only been blessed in that I happened to grow up in Los Altos. It was a natural fit. And yeah, I'd rather do a $1.5 million house because you get paid more for doing the same thing. So it's a good fit, but it's, yeah, I mean, sort of the high end, some of it has just been luck too. I mean, my biggest deal in 2008, you know, what's the...
Yeah, I want you to tell the group about just kind of that, if it's the one I think that you and Scott kind of met. I've actually shared that just from my limited knowledge, but tell us about that whole crazy thing.
Well, you know, it's all the whole thing about working hard in our business. I mean, I literally worked so hard just to be able to have one conversation that turned that into a, you know, a domino effect where I'm speaking with a lady on my kids' baseball team who, you know, we met and we were casual, and I'm not like the type, I'm not handing out my cards at any social event. That's just not what I do. But she goes, oh, I heard, I think I see one of your mailings for my mailbox. I mean, she wasn't like she knew exactly that I was a realtor. And then she happened to ask me about some properties, and, you know, luckily because I had seen them, you know, I was able to talk about them. But, you know, when she first brought it up, you know, I'm like wanting to watch the baseball game. And, you know, so I didn't necessarily want to even have a conversation about real estate. But she mentions the 3 properties, you know, and one was listed for about $30 million, and I'm like, oh my shit, my eyes are like, I'll get all wide. So I'm like, oh yeah, I can show you property next week, sure. So I ended up they ended up not buying a house that was already finished, so we did sell them a piece of dirt in Los Altos off market. That was $12 million, and the amazing part was I actually got a 3% commission on that on a $12 million deal, which, you know, was pretty spectacular.
So one of the things, and again, I talk about that a lot here too, you know, especially, you know, like social baseball games, and it is funny. I mean, like you said, you're not there looking for deals, but if you're just there and, you know, it's just, and you just kind of keep your antenna up, although I'm the same way as you are. A lot of times, I'll go to social events with my friends, and I'll walk in, okay, like 5 minutes. what do you guys want to know about the real estate market? I don't want to talk about it anymore. I'm done. It's like I've been talking about it constantly, but those deals are all around you all the time. I think if you just be aware. Just be aware. It's pretty amazing. I mean, because the reality of it is, did she follow back up with you after, or did you end up following up with her after you chatted with her at the baseball game?
Oh, she called me. Yeah. Because I was, as soon as I knew the price point, honestly, I was, even though I had
also the baseball game wasn't so interesting.
Yeah, it was still intimidating though. I'll tell you, it's still intimidating. Even though I'd already sold a $12 million deal before, it was like 5 years prior.
Yeah.
So when I knew those price ranges, I was like, oh my God, who are these people? And I had to go Google them. I didn't know who they were, and like why they suddenly had all this money.
Who were they? If you don't mind, what that guy do? I can't remember.
He's the founder of a company called Assurian. So it's the company when you go to Verizon and when they close the deal, try to get you to pay that $4.99 a month for that insurance policy. So if your phone ever gets destroyed, they'll immediately mail you a new one. Yeah. So it's an insurance company, but they're the biggest repairer of cell phones in the country.
Yeah, and it was if I remember correctly, what they looked like versus who they were was not.
No. Yeah, the guy is he's huge, like 400 pounds, and he's this big personality. Yeah. Just a wonderful man.
But it wasn't. But the thing was, it wasn't like they walked in their Armani suits and they were just
like the exact
very
opposite.
Yeah.
Total
So that's just the other thing to always be aware of. Sometimes
I
think we have this preconceived notion of what somebody's going to look like based upon the amount, the millionaire next door, or in this case, hundreds of millions next door or more. It's pretty amazing.
Yeah. But then, of course, the following week after that happened, that couple though takes the whole entire team and their families up to a Giants game and has the boxed seats. I mean, it was, they did it right. So they're spending their money in a fun way.
That's cool. That's cool. So, any other questions specific? I kind of have a list, and I just want to open it up to you guys. Go ahead, Dorothy.
So how long did it take you to consider yourself totally established in this business? Where you were like on a roll, you got your systems down, and you were just...
I would say, I actually had kind of a slow start. I don't think I did my first deal until like month 5 or 6. And Intero days, I might have been fired at Intero. But though I probably did that next 6 months, I did like 10 or 11 deals though. So it took a while to figure out, again, it's the whole thing. Even though I was a salesperson in the high tech, just figuring out what to say, and I just didn't know really what I was doing. And again, I remember back then there was like no training. It was you were pretty much on your own, and the manager, he was a horrible manager. And,
right.
So it was, you pretty much just had to make it happen. So.
Other questions? Yes.
You mentioned that you initially got into the business with a more senior established agent, and then you split off. Are you now still in a partnership with somebody else, or are you independent?
No. So I have a licensed assistant, but yeah. So Joe and I were partners. I think I was in the business by myself for about 1.5 years. But even that happened just sort of out of the blue. I wasn't looking for a partnership, but I called an expired listing and also sales and got an appointment. And thought, I should probably bring somebody else in with me here because I'm probably not going to get this. And I had never talked to Jo before. I was really intimidated by her. So, but she was very nice, and we went out there. Of course, we got it together, and we sold it quickly. And then she just luckily was going on vacation the next week. And she said, why don't you cover my business for me? And then she was gone on a cruise for like 2.5 weeks. And so I sold 2 of her listings while she was gone. So it was really, and then from there, I think she started thinking, I started thinking, it just sort of naturally happened. And it really was a great partnership for both of us. I owe a lot to her. To break into the high end, you can do it a hell of a lot faster when you're riding someone else's coattails.
Right.
For sure.
Other questions for David? Anything? Nothing? You guys got everything out of here that you wanted to get out of here?
What's his book? What's your book?
Oh, I'm waiting for my iPad to come. So in the meantime, that's the way I take notes.
So you're gonna get an iPad?
Well, I don't know. You
will probably.
I probably will.
I went to his house for dinner, I think it was last summer. He bought, I think it was last summer, or maybe it was the summer before. All new Macs, man, everywhere. It was like a Mac house, and there it was. It was pretty amazing.
We're a Mac family. So.
You're a Mac family. Cool. So if there's nothing else, that's it. There's one last opportunity. Dave, thanks, man.
All right.